It began with a sentence that wasn't meant to start a crisis, yet somehow did. Dana White, seated under bright media lights, delivered one of his blunt statements, the kind that usually lands, trends, and fade.
You don't like the way we pay our fighters? Too fucking bad. Go start another MMA organization and you go fucking figure out how to do it. And you can pay them $10 million a fight, $30 million a fight, whatever you want to do. We run a business. We've been very good at it.
But this time, it hit differently. Those words didn't just echo. They detonated. Within hours, a strange shift rippled across fight media. Screens filled with red banners, dramatic headlines, and a claim so extreme it almost demanded belief. The entire UFC lightweight division had walked out after sudden salary cuts. No confirmations, no statements, no evidence. But curiosity and outrage spread faster than facts ever could. It happened suddenly and silently, the way misinformation always does. Fans woke on a cold November morning to timelines overflowing with shock. Clips of Dana White glared across thumbnails, stamped with phrases like "we're done with it" and "division revolt." It didn't matter that no official announcement existed. The MMA community had already begun stitching the rumor into a narrative, and the narrative felt almost too plausible. For years, fighter pay had lived at the center of whispered frustrations. Entry-level purses stuck at $12,000 a show, inflation shrinking real earnings, and $1 billion promotion expanding faster than its compensation structure. The UFC's $7.7 billion broadcast deal with Paramount only intensified perception that someone, somewhere, wasn't getting their fair share. So when anonymity-fueled accounts claimed pay cuts had hit the roster overnight, fans didn't hesitate. The question wasn't, is this true? The question was, why wouldn't it be? Yet behind the smoke, the real picture was entirely different. According to verified UFC records, the lightweight division wasn't collapsing. It was thriving. Islam Makhachev's vacating the belt in May 2025 had nothing to do with finances. He was chasing a historic second division legacy. The vacant title was claimed months later at UFC 317, where Ilya captured the belt in a clinical third-round submission. Beneath them, Arman Tsarukyan, Justin Gaia, Max Holloway, and Charles Oliveira kept the top tier as lethal as ever. The supposed mass walkout didn't appear in matchmaker schedules, contract logs, roster tracking, or internal communications. Turnover remained normal, 5% to 10% annually, the same rate as previous years. A few veterans retired or were cut, routine decisions, not rebellion. But rumors don't need truth. They need timing. Anonymous DMs, clipped audio, heavily edited footage, and algorithm-boosted outrage pushed the story forward. And because the lightweight division is arguably the UFC's most stacked, the idea of it collapsing became irresistible clickbait. The real crisis wasn't inside the UFC. It was happening outside, in the space where perception soon becomes pressure and pressure becomes narrative. To understand how a false rumor gained enough force to shake the sport's foundation, we have to examine the digital machinery that transformed speculation into something that felt dangerously close to reality. The rumor didn't spread because someone made an official statement. It spread because the perfect ecosystem existed for it to thrive. A digital landscape where speculation moves faster than verification and emotion routinely outruns evidence. It started quietly on smaller MMA commentary channels. These weren't established news outlets, nor journalists with access to managers or matchmakers. They were creators who specialized in rapid reaction content, dramatic voiceovers, clipped press conference moments, AI-generated thumbnails, and vague references to sources close to the situation. Within hours, nearly identical videos appeared across multiple channels. The divisions mentioned changed: heavyweights, featherweights, bantamweights, but the lightweight version caught fire. The structure was always the same: ominous narration, blurred screenshots, and escalating narrative of revolt. No documents. No on-record statements. Yet the presentation carried enough intensity to make uncertainty look like confirmation. The algorithm did the rest. By late October 2025, negative content consistently outperformed neutral reporting. Posts expressing outrage or suspicion attracted 3 times more engagement than posts containing verified information. In a sport where conflict is a currency, MMA audiences are especially vulnerable to narratives built around betrayal, secrecy, and internal chaos. The rumor didn't spread because someone made an official statement. It spread because the perfect ecosystem existed for it to thrive. A digital landscape where speculation moves faster than verification and emotion routinely outruns evidence. It started quietly on smaller MMA commentary channels. These weren't established news outlets, nor journalists with access to managers or matchmakers. They were creators who specialized in rapid reaction content, dramatic voiceovers, clip press conference moments, AI-generated thumbnails, and vague references to sources close to the situation. Within hours, nearly identical videos appeared across multiple channels. The divisions mentioned changed: heavyweights, featherweights, bantamweights, but the lightweight version caught fire. The structure was always the same: ominous narration, blurred screenshots, and escalating narrative of revolt. No documents. No on-record statements. Yet the presentation carried enough intensity to make uncertainty look like confirmation. The algorithm did the rest. By late October 2025, negative content consistently outperformed neutral reporting. Posts expressing outrage or suspicion attracted 3 times more engagement than posts containing verified information. In a sport where conflict is a currency, MMA audiences are especially vulnerable to narratives built around betrayal, secrecy, and internal chaos. As the rumor accelerated, screenshots detached from their original context began recirculating as proof. A cropped message with no username. A quote pulled from an unrelated interview. A photo of Dana White mid-shout repurposed to imply crisis. Each fragment helped the rumor feel cohesive, even though none of it connected to actual UFC operations. Mainstream outlets tried to keep their eyes on real storylines: Islam Makhachev's welterweight ambitions, Ilya's first title defense, the build-up toward UFC 323. ESPN, MMA Junkie, and MMA Fighting published nothing about walkouts or salary cuts because nothing had happened. But the absence of reporting was interpreted as something else entirely: silence. And in online spaces, silence is often mistaken for confirmation. Reddit threads speculated that the UFC had issued gag orders. Ex-posts claimed fighters were being pressured to remain quiet. Fans began insisting that the truth will come out soon, even though none of the division's actual athletes hinted at unrest. Lightweight fighters were posting training footage, traveling for camps, and preparing for scheduled bouts as usual. Meanwhile, UFC 322 at Madison Square Garden went ahead with record attendance. Lightweight matchups unfolded exactly as planned. The roster remained intact, yet the rumor continued circulating as if it existed in a parallel universe. The power of the story didn't come from facts. It came from how perfectly it aligned with long-standing distrust around fighter pay. The suspicion had been building for years, and this speculation, even without evidence, acted like a match dropped into dry grass. The narrative had taken on a life of its own, and soon it would grow into something larger than a misunderstanding, something that exposed deeper structural tensions within the sport itself. The viral rumor may have been false, but it touched a nerve because the underlying tension inside the UFC was undeniably real. Even without an organized walkout, the conditions that made the story believable had existed for years, quietly shaping the lives of fighters long before the headline appeared. Behind the scenes, lightweight athletes, especially those outside the top tier, navigated financial realities that rarely reached public discussion. A full training camp, travel to specialized gyms, nutrition planning, strength coaching, sparring partners, recovery therapy, and repeated medical checks. For many fighters, these expenses consumed a large portion of their purse before they even stepped into the cage. Interviews from past years revealed how common it had become for fighters to take side jobs, borrow money, or even live inside gyms to keep their careers alive. While champions and top contenders earned strong paydays, the majority of the roster lived at the edge of financial uncertainty. The gap between the UFC's billion-dollar valuation and the day-to-day economics of fighters created a tension that simmered beneath the surface. It wasn't that fighters weren't aware of their leverage. It was that using it carried consequences. The UFC structure had always favored individual negotiation. Pushing too hard risked losing opportunities, being shelved, or losing promotional backing. For many fighters, especially newer ones, momentum was everything. Losing could mean years of rebuilding or the end of a career That dynamic made collective negotiation almost impossible. Fighters trained at different gyms, had different managers, and fought on different schedules. Even if frustrations were shared, coordination was scattered. There were private discussions, yes, conversations about revenue splits, guaranteed pay, and long-term stability, but these rarely transformed into unified action. Dana White's own public statements contributed to the distrust. His straightforward approach resonated with many fans, but also strengthened perception that change was unlikely. When he remarked in September 2025, "Fighter pay is going to be good, but not everybody deserves the same. This isn't the NBA." Critics seized on the comment as confirmation of a rigid philosophy. To them, it signaled that despite growing revenues, the pay structure will remain fundamentally unchanged. Yet the actual lightweight division remained one of the UFC's healthiest. Ilya held the title with rising global popularity. Arman Tsarukyan edged closer to a championship opportunity. Justin Gaia, Charles Oliveira, and Max Holloway kept the top of the division stacked with elite competition. Prospects like Paddy Pimblett and Benoit Santini climbed steadily, adding both depth and marketability. But while the competitive landscape remained intact, the emotional landscape shifted. Fans who once accepted the business, as is now analyzed financial reports, compared contracts across promotions, and openly questioned whether the current model was sustainable. The rumor had acted as an accelerant, not creating tension, but revealing how close the sport already was confronting it. The story of a division-wide revolt wasn't true, but the environment that made people believe it, that part couldn't be ignored. When the rumor finally began losing momentum, the truth stood unchanged. No fighter had walked out, no mass resignation had occurred, and no division had protested pay cuts. But the impact of the narrative outlasted its accuracy. The lightweight division remained operational. Yet the fallout revealed something far more meaningful than any fabricated crisis, a widening gap between how the UFC operates and how its audience perceives those operations. Once the rumor faded, fans didn't simply forget it. Instead, it pushed them into deeper conversations about fighter compensation, transparency, and long-term sustainability. Across X and Reddit, users began circulating spreadsheets comparing UFC payouts to those in boxing, PFL, and Bellator. Discussions that once stayed within niche MMA forums suddenly became mainstream talking points. Terms like revenue share, guaranteed purse, and athlete rights entered the vocabulary of casual fans, an unusual shift for a sport where financial details historically remained hidden behind promotional narratives. The episode also energized existing advocacy groups. The MMA Athletes Association, which had previously struggled with visibility and coordination, saw renewed public interest. Even high-profile fighters, typically cautious with comments that might jeopardize future matchups, began speaking more openly about compensation. Veterans nearing the ends of their contracts monitored offers from rival promotions more seriously than before. While no major defection occurred, the idea that it could happen gained new credibility. For the UFC, the challenge was subtler but more significant. The company did not need to issue a statement denying the walkout. Its event schedule alone disproved it. Lightweight fighters continue competing as booked. UFC 322 delivered a record crowd. Upcoming cards remained intact. Yet the organization faced a different problem. The realization that silence, even when justified, could be misinterpreted by a fan base increasingly skeptical of corporate motives. Dana White maintained his usual tone in press interactions, dismissing internet speculation as noise. But this posture, effective in the past, now fed into a narrative of indifference. The more dismissive he appeared, the more fans believed that deeper issues were being pushed aside. The disconnect wasn't about facts. It was about trust. Inside the cage, the division stayed one of the strongest in the sport. Islam Makhachev's pursuit of welterweight greatness kept headlines active. Ilya's undefeated momentum brought new energy to the title picture. Arman Tsarukyan remained a top contender. Justin Gaia, Charles Oliveira, and others provided depth, star power, and elite matchups. From a competitive standpoint, the lightweight class showed no signs of instability. But beneath the surface, the rumor had shifted sentiment. Fighters privately acknowledged that conversations about fair compensation were becoming less taboo. Younger prospects, once eager for any opportunity, began asking managers more pointed questions about long-term financial viability. Even gym culture shifted subtly. Discussions about contract revenue and bargaining power became more common between training sessions. The viral myth didn't fracture division, but it did illuminate the fatigue running through the ecosystem. Fatigue with secrecy, with disproportionate revenue distribution, with the expectation that fighters endure financial instability while a billion-dollar promotion continues to grow. The lightweight division hadn't said, "We're done with it," but the belief that they might someday had finally entered the conversation. Not as a rumor, but as a possibility the sport could no longer ignore.